Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another One Ran review. Today I'll be taking a look at a brand new book from Glacier Bay, Pandora. When we were at Mocha, Imuru, who is one of the people running Glacier Bay Press, came over and introduced himself, which was awesome because I'm a real big fan of what Glacier Bay is doing as a publisher and what Imuru did on their book Hafir Mir. And then this book here, like, he came over and handed it to me and was like, oh, here, just wanted you to be able to check this out, like it's a new book coming out. And I said, hey, could I buy that from you? Because it was like right at the end of Mocha, and this was like their little table copy for a promo. And Imu was kind of like, okay. So I went back to their table and just cleaned them out of everything that of theirs that I don't have yet, and so we'll be getting a lot of Glacier Bay reviews coming in the mix here. But really excited to have this. I've done another review of a Hagiwara Rei book and really enjoyed it. So I wanted to do this and get this out there and get people ordering this book, like get this out there soon after the show. So I'm really excited about this. This is Pandora, the Receding Sound of Footsteps by Hagiwara Rei, published by Glacier Bay. Glacier Bay, if you haven't seen any of my videos on them, are a small press company that is releasing like indie manga artists, collecting the work of indie manga artists. So you get things that have a much wider variety of like style and content. It's kind of, I would make it the equivalent of like a Fantagraphics or Living the Line in Japan, where they're looking at the really artistic pieces of work, not just the saleable ones, the publicly saleable ones. The really cool thing about this book, too, is even though it's a set of short stories, like this first one is about a mother that loses her son, I didn't get a sense of if it was a baby that she lost before it was born or aborted, or if it was a son that she actually lost after he reached 7 or 8 or something, or if that's just her imagination, because the stories are kind of poetic. But there's a theme of loss throughout, and then I think it eventually builds up to where you realize that this is a book that's dealing with the emotional consequences of the pandemic and just loss in general and sorrow and sadness and stuff. And it's with this really beautiful watercolor style that you see throughout the book. There's a real sense of like two of the big artist touch points that I got were Miyazaki with the watercolors and some of the faces, and then John J. Muth, like the really kind of light, desaturated, soft, really soft watercolor. He's letting everything bleed and get fuzzy. I just feel like those are two touch points. I don't know that this artist would be influenced by Muth at all, but that if you like John J. Muth stuff, I think you'll dig the vibe of the art in this book. You'll see panels like this that are so simple but just really beautiful, really speak to it. So these stories like intertwine in a way as well. Like this one has these pieces of crystal that are like put in this box that seem to relate to the death. This one here is about a ghost book. There's these little. This is another symbol that shows up. There's like a cave on the shore that this character is drawn to, and then there's a book in there where it has a ghost tied to the book. The character reads the book. Really cool abstracts like this. Kind of remind me of what Ashton Carlos is doing over at Dead Crow Press, like with their spaceship book. But this character encounters a ghost basically through a book that they left. And I really, this door symbol that shows up, like this passageway to the other side, is really important as I read the book. And the characters are kind of oftentimes turning into the door, like this progression here of the character simplifying down to the door shape, I find to be really compelling. I kind of have an interpretation of it, but not solid enough to say anything about it. But there's kind of a really sophisticated poetics of form, visual play like that, these formal plays with shapes that I think lead to extra meaning and content. Here you see another one of these just kind of big, dark abstractions where you kind of get a loose face shape. That reminds me of some of what Ashton Carlos is doing, and some other artists, Muth would be another one. But I really, really enjoy that. This one here, Pandora's Box, is definitely, it's the center of the book, but it's also the one that ties this most to COVID, because it's dealing with, obviously, Pandora opening her box and letting out the plague and letting out death, things like that. Another artist that I kind of not claiming either one is influenced by the other, but saw similarities to, is Andrew White, with these very, very sparse pencil drawings, but the compositions are perfect, and the sense of presence and atmosphere that are created by these drawings are perfect. So you just get these kind of iconic images here that speak straight to the cartoon brain. Here's Pandora's Box, and this relates to the earlier story because there is a box there that has those jewels in it, and so you kind of get these, not that the stories share the same world necessarily, but in the same way that a poetics of form will have a shape show up over and over again, like the door. There's kind of these themes, these visual themes or content themes that show up throughout the book that I find really compelling. I don't want to give away too much because this is a book that's probably hitting the shelves by a week after this goes up. So I just want to kind of sell it and give an overview of the content. This one's taking place in a mental health facility. You know, someone who's dealing, and they're talking about they're quarantined in it. So just dealing with being stuck in there. So here we learn why the lady got put into the mental institution, and you see a link to potentially the first story where the lady lost her son. So this gal in institution is talking about being on a roof with a kid. He said he wanted to see the scenery from the top of the wall of the place we will eventually be heading to, the future we are advancing towards, our destination. I want to see our destination. He fell from the wall. So the implication here is that she helped him get up on the top of the wall and he fell, and then maybe that's how the kid died that the mother's struggling with in the first story. So that's what I'm saying. They maybe are all one story kind of seen from 5 different viewpoints, or they could be unrelated. It's kind of up to the viewer. But I also like this idea of, wanting to see the place that we'll be eventually heading to, kind of jumping forward, the danger of moving too fast to see the future. You got to get there in the steps, and if you jump ahead too far, it could be dangerous. And so I kind of like that little message that's embedded in there. Here again, they're talking about the dead. The dead, they look at me without saying a word, and you see that door symbol again, and the kind of door-shaped bodies heading to the door. So there's definitely, the door is something about death and spirits passing, and as the bodies get more door-shaped, I think that means they're heading towards the light, they're dying, and you get this nice eclipse of the door there. And then you go into this, she said, one day I followed behind the dead, and I arrived in a room that was empty and completely silent. And you get all this architecture here. And again, I like that visual rhythm of the kind of eclipse of the door turning into the architecture of the arc. So just a lot of really sophisticated visual play in the book. And then this last one is about a guy standing at the edge of the pond dealing with the death of his wife. Just some really more beautiful imagery. Again, I think John J. Muth and artists like that, just in the color palette and kind of the chalkiness of the art, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And then again, you get this kind of character slowly turning into the door. So I think this is a really sophisticated, really beautiful book. I think I could dig deeper into it. I just don't want to because it's a new book. I think everyone should go get it for themselves. But I think this is something that cycling through the book a couple times, especially in the row, would probably really unfold things. And there's also, because of the abstraction of the watercolor and things like that, the chance of the watercolor, there's a chance to engage in your own imagination and add things to it. As I'm sitting here and talking and I'm looking at this door, there almost appears to be a female figure in it, but it doesn't look like the artist made that happen, like the head, the hair, the arm, the body. I don't know if that shows up on camera, but those are kind of the chance events that can happen when you're working with the medium like watercolor. And so I think there's a lot of room for kind of personal investment in pareidolia in there, which obviously is something I'm quite interested in at the time. So just really beautiful book. Like I said, I love everything Glacier Bay does. Hagiwara Rei is an amazing artist, so I couldn't recommend this book enough. I know it's just coming out, so make sure you go. I'll put a link follow over to Glacier Bay and make sure to get yourself a copy. It's an awesome book. This is one of the publishers right now that I'm most behind and most think deserves the support of our viewers, because they're bringing the type of work that I think we're all interested in over and exposing us to things we wouldn't be exposed to otherwise. So please, please, please support them. This is a great book to do it with. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and want to support us, there's two ways to do that. The first one is through our Patreon. We have 2 different tiers of interaction on there. The first one just gets you early access to our videos. On the second one, there's an exclusive webcomic experiment that you can take part in and vote and help manipulate where the story goes. And then there's also just early access to the works that Sean and I are doing. So some previews of the art for our forthcoming graphic novels and different projects that we're working on. Any of the money that we get through that helps us buy the books that we review. So just put that back into other creators' pockets and try and help the industry out and help keep you all exposed to cool new works. So we really appreciate that. And then if you want to support Living the Line itself, the best thing to do is to support what Sean's doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. This is translated by Ryan Holmberg and is very large for a manga. So that's a really cool feature of this book, this standard manga size. And this is just a 200 some odd page representation of what Yokoyama Yuichi thinks of the Carnival Parade. And he's just made this like relentlessly loud and rhythmic book that pushes all kinds of amazing boundaries of what comics and manga are. And we could not recommend this book more. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.